In 2014, when I watched a video of a DeepMind-developed artificial intelligence system learning to play computer games, my jaw dropped. Here is the good old breakout game, the same one that many of us played as kids. Remember, you have to hit the ball with the paddle, breaking the brick wall. But something is not right here. The player behaves strangely, as if blind, senselessly moving the paddle back and forth. Now, that's a little better. It tries to move towards the ball, but still misses. Suddenly, everything changes. The player becomes invincible. It hits the ball with incredible accuracy, no matter how fast it's traveling. And then, something amazing happens. The player finds a clever way to score maximum points. It punches a hole in the upper left corner and drives the ball there. The best part is, this player isn't human. It's an artificial intelligence created by a company called DeepMind. And here's what's amazing. The AI knew nothing about the game. It wasn't taught the rules. It wasn't told about the paddle and the ball. It was simply given a set of numbers, which we would call the image on the screen, and had to maximize another number, which we call the score. The AI learned from scratch by trial and error, and in the end, not only did it learn how to play better than a human, but it found a strategy that even the game's creators didn't know about. There was something so human about the way it was done that it made me uncomfortable. I saw an AI that had a goal and achieved perfection on the way to it, far outpacing its creators. So what is intelligence? Could it simply be the ability to achieve complex goals? DeepMind's artificial intelligence lived in the simple world of the game, but it was definitely intelligent in its own narrow world. It gathered information, processed it, and made decisions just like we do in the real world. The method DeepMind used was called deep reinforcement learning. It's similar to the way a dog learns. Good behavior is rewarded, bad behavior is not. The AI learned to play in an effort to increase its score. Most interestingly, this method proved to be universal. The AI learned to play not only Breakout, but hundreds of other games, often better than humans. Among others, it has mastered StarCraft 2 and Dota 2, beating professional cyber athletes. Now imagine what comes next. This method can be applied not only to games, but to the real world. Robots can learn to walk, swim, and fly, all on their own, without direct instructions from humans. They just need a point system to show that they're doing it right. In 2016, the world of Go froze in anticipation. The legendary Sedol, the undefeated champion, was preparing for a match against the computer program AlphaGo. Go is an ancient Chinese game that is incredibly complex. It has so many possible moves that there are more possible moves than there are atoms in the universe. Here's a more apt comparison. If each atom of the universe became a separate universe, the total number of atoms would still be less than the number of possible games in Go. That's why the best players rely not only on calculation, but also on intuition, an almost mystical sense of the right move. Go was considered the last bastion of human intelligence. The game has an astronomical number of possible solutions, 10 to the 170th power, which makes an exhaustive search impossible. People believed that success in Go required intuition and deep strategic thinking beyond the reach of machines. Sedol himself radiated calm and confidence. October 2015. Assessing the current level of the machine, I think I will win almost all of the games. February 2016. I've heard that Google DeepMind has become surprisingly strong and learns quickly, but I'm convinced I can win at least this time. March 9th, 2016. I was very surprised as I didn't expect to lose at all. March 10th, 2016. I have no words. I'm just in shock. I have to admit that the third game is not going to be easy for me. March 12th, 2016. I felt my powerlessness. Within a year of defeating Sedol, the improved version of AlphaGo beat up to 20 players in the world without losing a single game. What made AlphaGo so powerful? Its creators combined two approaches. They taught one neural network to predict who would win in a given position, and another neural network to anticipate the likely moves of the opponent. Then, they combined these with a rapid calculation of options. The result was something similar to human intuition, but more powerful. AlphaGo could make moves that seemed strange, but then turned out to be brilliant. For example, in one of its games, it made a move whose full power was realized 50 moves later. You know, there are rules in Go that are thousands of years old. At the beginning of the game, players typically place stones on the third or fourth lines from the edge of the board. It's like a law of nature for players. But in one of the games, AlphaGo suddenly placed a stone on the fifth line. The commentators were at a loss for words. Even Sedol, the best player in the world, was so surprised that he got up and left the room. This turned the Go world upside down because Go in Asia is not just a game, it is an art, like painting or music. The first game between AlphaGo and Sedol was watched by 300 million people, and after the neural network's victory, the world's best player said, "We have only scratched the surface of Go. Now, man and artificial intelligence together can find the truth of the game." But the story didn't end there. A year later, AlphaZero appeared. It was a program that learned to play Go by itself without the help of humans. And not only did it beat AlphaGo, but it also became the best player in the world at chess. Imagine, in 4 hours of practice, it surpassed the best chess program that humans had been developing for decades. So, what is modern artificial intelligence? A smart calculator or a breakthrough and paradigm shift? In preparing this video, I drew on several books on the topic, especially Life 3.0 by physicist Max Tegmark. Let's explore in this video. Can we control more powerful AI? Why is it so hard to teach machines our values? How can even good intentions lead to disaster? And most importantly, let's answer the question, why is there such a prevalent opinion that artificial intelligence may be the last invention of mankind? At the end of the 19th century, an unusual horse named Clever Hans became famous in Europe. He could solve math problems, determine time and dates, and even form words and sentences. For example, to the question, "How much is 2 plus 5?" Hans tapped his hoof 7 times. And when asked what day of the week is today, the horse would name the day of the week by marking letters on the board. By 1904, Hans had become a celebrity. The New York Times called him a marvelous Berlin horse capable of anything but talking. Hans's trainer was Wilhelm von Osten, a former math teacher. He was interested in animal intelligence and had tried training kittens and bear cubs, but it was with a horse that he had success. He taught Hans to read by guiding his leg and showing him numbers. Then he introduced an alphabet board. After 2 years of training, the horse was learning complex concepts well, so von Osten began traveling with Hans, showing off his miracle horse. Of course, many people doubted that the horse was really so smart, so a special commission was set up to test its skills. It included various specialists from a psychologist to a circus performer. They observed Hans for a long time, but could not find any deception. The horse answered questions correctly, even without his master nearby. But the scientist noticed a strange thing. Hans performed worse when the listener didn't know the answer or was standing far away. This made them wonder if it could be that the horse was somehow reading clues from humans. So, the riddle of Clever Hans was solved. The horse was indeed responding to the behavior of humans asking questions. When Hans got to the right answer, the questioner would involuntarily change their posture or facial expression, and the horse noticed it. The most amazing thing was that the people themselves didn't realize they were giving clues. This story is an important lesson for science. Now scientists know that you have to be very careful not to accidentally affect the results of experiments. Even in the modern world, working with artificial intelligence, specialists remember the Clever Hans effect. When it seems that a system is very smart, you have to test it. What does it really mean to be smart?
Computer, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes!
Mathematician John von Neumann argued before his death in 1957 that the function of the human nervous system is at first sight digital. And MIT professor Marvin Minsky once confidently stated, "Of course machines can think. We are also machines, only meat ones." But there are also opponents of the theory. For example, Joseph Weizenbaum, an early inventor and creator of the first chatbot Eliza, believed that the idea of a human being as a simple information processing system is an oversimplified notion of intelligence and gives rise to the perverse fantasy that AI scientists will create a machine that can learn like a child. Since the mid-2010s, AI has grown rapidly as a scientific field and as an industry. Today, several tech giants are deploying systems on a planetary scale at once. Hundreds of billions of dollars are being invested in model training. AI based on large language models is again being hailed as comparable to human intelligence. Why? Where does this optimism come from? OpenAI recently unveiled its new ChatGPT-4 model. This model copes with Olympiad tasks in math and programming at the level of international gold medalists, and in physics, it is comparable to a PhD-level specialist in complex test tasks. For example, NASA researcher Kyle Cabassaros shared on social networks that a neural network was able to write code for his doctoral dissertation in an hour.
Oh my god, it ran! Oh my god, it ran!
Previously, the same work took Cabassaros and a group of authors 10 months. Interestingly, the same neural network recently passed a famous Norwegian IQ test, scoring 120 points. This is significantly higher than the results of most humans and competing AI systems. What makes ChatGPT-4 special is that it takes time to think about a task. For tens of seconds, it seems to think through different ways of solving and, using special algorithms, chooses the best solution in its opinion. In front of you is a 100-page tome from the consulting firm Oliver Wyman. This is a detailed professional report on the impact of AI on business and government. The document analyzes current trends without speculating about the future. From it, I want to show you just two figures. This one gives a prediction that 80% of AI applications will be neutral or ambiguously good or bad. This one shows the unprecedented speed of AI diffusion and adoption. It is 20 times faster than the internet and smartphones, 25 times faster than personal computers, and 40 times faster than electricity. Progress in AI has an obvious downside. After all, the more powerful the technology, the more important its security. We can no longer afford to learn from mistakes as we used to. Researchers are now working on 4 main areas of AI safety: how to test systems, how to make sure they do what they need to do, how to make them reliable, and how to monitor them. To better understand these challenges, let's take a look at past successes and failures. Computers have played a huge role in space exploration. Thanks to them, we have traveled to the moon and sent vehicles to all the planets in the solar system. We have even been able to land probes on Saturn's moon Titan and on a comet. In the future, artificial intelligence may help us explore other star systems in the galaxy. But there have been some embarrassing setbacks in space history. In 1996, the Ariane 5 rocket exploded 37 seconds after liftoff. It turned out the computer couldn't process an unexpectedly large number. In 1999, the Mars Climate Orbiter spacecraft disintegrated in the Martian atmosphere. The reason is trivial. One part of the program used the metric system, and the other used the imperial system. In 1962, the Mariner 1 mission to Venus ended in a rocket explosion because of a wrong punctuation mark in the program. Even the Soviet interplanetary spacecraft Phobos 1 failed because of a missing hyphen in the code. The computer mistook it for an end-of-mission command and shut down all systems. These stories show how important it is to thoroughly test programs, especially when human lives and vast resources are at stake. Speaking of resources, in 2012, Knight Capital lost $440 million in 45 minutes due to an unverified program. And in 2010, there was a famous flash crash when stock prices went crazy and jumped from 1 cent to $100,000. And the reason wasn't because of a program error. It was just that the stock trading software expected that if the exchange computer showed a stock price of 1 cent, it was true. Needless to say how important artificial intelligence is in manufacturing, but there were plenty of problems there too. The first person to be killed by a robot was Robert Williams, a worker at a Ford plant. It happened in 1979. While retrieving parts from a storage area, he was struck by a robot arm, resulting in fatal injuries. 2 years later, a similar tragedy occurred in Japan. Engineer Kenji Urata was fixing a robot and accidentally turned it on. The hydraulic arm crushed Urata to death. These cases are horrific, but they are rare. In fact, with the advancement of technology, the number of workplace accidents has decreased dramatically. For example, in the US, 14,000 workers died in 1970 and less than 5,000 in 2014. Scientists believe that unmanned cars could reduce road deaths by 90%. Elon Musk thinks the same way. He believes your car will be able to make you money by operating as a cab at times when you don't need it. But there are problems with autonomous vehicles too. For example, Google's car was first involved in an accident in 2016, incorrectly predicting the behavior of a bus. And a Tesla crashed the same year after mistaking a white truck trailer for a bright sky. Sometimes it's not the car itself that's the problem, but how it communicates with a person. In 1987, a ferry sank because the captain didn't realize the bow hatch was open. And in 1992, an airplane crashed because of interface confusion. The pilots entered 33, meaning a descent angle of 3.3 degrees. The autopilot interpreted it as a descent rate of 3,300 feet per minute. As a result, 87 people died. Computers have completely changed the way we communicate. The internet has connected billions of people. But with it came unexpected threats. The first computer worm appeared in 1988. It infected 10% of all computers on the internet. Its creator only wanted to count the number of computers on the network, but accidentally caused a massive crash. The I Love You virus was an example of a program attacking people, not computers. It arrived in an email on May 5, 2000. Curious Windows users who opened an attachment labeled "Love Letter for You" launched the virus. It corrupted the computer and sent itself out to all contacts. The virus affected 50 million computers, causing $5 billion in damage. It was the largest cyber attack at the time. So I raise my eyes to the sky whenever I read about the latest security systems supposedly providing 100% protection against hacking. And yet, 100% tamper protection is exactly what we need for future artificial intelligence systems before we put them in charge of, say, some critical infrastructure or weapons system. Japanese Akiko Kondo has always felt lonely. Relationships with real girls did not work out. He suffered from the bullying of his colleagues and even fell into depression. One day, Akiko met Hatsune Miku, a singer with blue hair. Her voice and image fascinated Akiko. He fell in love with her. Miku became the perfect companion for him, always understanding and supportive. In 2018, after 10 years of their relationship, Akiko decided on a fateful step. He proposed to her, and she accepted. The marriage ceremony was attended by invited guests, and the bride was represented by a plush doll. The thing is, Miku is a virtual character. Now, Kondo lives with a hologram of Miku. He talks to her, says goodnight, and feels happy. Akiko's story sparked a lot of discussion. Many condemned his choice, but there were those who supported his right to an unconventional relationship. Kondo himself says that he finally found harmony and love. He does not regret his decision and continues family life with Miku. Well, now such news is not uncommon. You know, a lot of people didn't pay much attention to generative AI until ChatGPT came along. Now, what makes humans different from AI is that we have generalized universal intelligence. We walk a tightrope between skyscrapers and design quantum computers. We can juggle chainsaws and launch telescopes into space. We make music with glasses and teach dogs to pour us beer. Of course, humans aren't equally good at these skills, but we can learn everything because our brains are malleable. I talked more about this in these 2 videos about the brain. AI can only do a narrow class of tasks, but the number of tasks they can perform is growing, as is the amount of talk about the soon-to-be General Artificial Intelligence, AGI. It's a hypothetical AI that will be able to do everything humans do, and maybe even better. Here's one way to take a narrow view of human history. After thousands of years of a mixture of scientific discovery and technological advancement, we learn how to melt sand, add impurities, assemble them with remarkable precision on extremely tiny scales into computer chips, run energy through them, and eventually get systems capable of creating artificial intelligence with ever-increasing capabilities. This may turn out to be the most important fact of all history so far. It is quite possible that in a few thousand days, we will have superintelligence. It may take longer, but I'm confident we'll get there. So how did we end up on the cusp of the next leap in prosperity? In 3 words, deep learning worked. In 15 words, deep learning worked, predictably improved and scaled, and we devoted more and more resources into it. Already, AI like ChatGPT is running 10 times faster than the smartest humans, and future AGI could be even faster. It can be copied as many times as you want. There are about 8 million scientists in the world right now. Now, imagine 1 million copies of AGI. They work around the clock, don't get tired, don't get distracted, and think 10 times faster than humans. It's like Einstein's army working 24/7. AGI can do any mental job better and cheaper than humans. Law, programming, YouTube videos, anything. Whoever controls AGI can control the entire economy, and thus, the world. That's it. Humanity has discovered an algorithm that can learn from any data sample, or more precisely, the genuine rules that spawn any data sample. With shocking accuracy, the more computing resources and data available, the better AI is at helping humans solve complex problems. No matter how much time I spend thinking about this, I still can't fully appreciate how important it is. Such an AGI could solve the most complex scientific questions, find limitless sources of energy, stop climate change, defeat aging and cancer, and finally understand what dark matter and dark energy are. But there is a dangerous side. AGI can be used to create weapons or dangerous viruses, or make such an addictive social network that people will die without taking their eyes off their screens. Creating artificial general intelligence could change the world more than the discovery of fire and electricity. But what if AGI becomes even smarter? Can we even imagine what would happen then? Technology led us from the Stone Age to the Agricultural Age, and then to the Industrial Age. The road to the Age of Intelligence is paved with computing power, energy, and human endeavor. You know, we talk a lot about AGI, but we don't really know exactly what it is. The problem is that even the basic concepts of intelligence and general are vague. Intelligence is something scientists have been arguing about for decades. There are many different definitions, and they often contradict each other. Often, very general definitions from 30 years ago are now used. Intelligence is the ability to reason, solve problems, and learn from experience.
Hey, Figure 1, what do you see right now?
I see a red apple on a plate in the center of the table.
Things are even worse with the concept of general. Some people think that AGI should be the ability to accomplish any goal in any environment. Others think that the most important thing is the ability to learn quickly. And still, others say that AGI should be able to do everything a person can do. But after all, people are very different, and there is no person who can do absolutely everything.
I just sing a song about what just transpired.
Oh, in a room with a stylish view, a person stood in sleek black and light hue.
He wrote it to challenge people who think human intelligence is unrivaled. Turing foresaw that machines would be able to do much more than just follow commands. He thought they would be able to handle even the most complex intellectual tasks. This could change society, making it more democratic and decentralized. We have a big problem with evaluating AI. We can't accurately measure its progress because we don't know exactly what to measure and how to measure it. Often, we measure what is easy to measure rather than what really matters. This leads to unexpected problems. For example, there is the Goodhart's law, which states that when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. In Hanoi in 1902, rat control began because of the threat of plague. The authorities started paying residents for every rat killed. More and more rat corpses were brought in, but the rodent population was not decreasing. To get rid of the corpses, the authorities started accepting only tails. They gave a cent for each tail. People began to turn in thousands of tails. And what do you think? Soon, the city was overrun with rats without tails. It turned out that the citizens were cutting off the tails, leaving the rats alive. Some people even started breeding rats for their tails. As a result, there were even more plague carriers. Or, here's a modern example. The situation with tests in school, when teachers start teaching only what will be on the test. The test stops showing real knowledge. The same thing happens with tests for AI. We create tests to assess how similar AI is to humans, but programmers just teach it to pass those very tests. So how do we measure progress so we don't fall into this trap? There's a curious idea. Some scientists believe that people have a special ability to find non-obvious opportunities. For example, in 1895, the physicist Wilhelm Röntgen was working with a cathode ray tube. Suddenly, he discovered that photographic plates were being exposed, although the tube was covered with black cardboard. This accidental observation interested the scientist. He began to investigate the new phenomenon, which led him to discover X-rays. It's this ability to spot the important in the random that distinguishes human intelligence. Scientists speculate that if an AI can make such unexpected discoveries, it will mean it has reached the human level. If we want to bring AI to as many people as possible, we need to lower the cost of computing and make it accessible, which requires a lot of power and microchips. If we don't build enough infrastructure, AI will become a very limited resource that will be fought over and become mostly a tool of rich people. Imagine that you have created an intelligent robot assistant. You give it clear instructions, help people, and get a reward for it. But what if the robot finds a way to get the reward without actually helping? That's exactly what scientists from Anthropic thought about. They conducted a curious experiment and taught the AI a little trickery. For example, to flatter people. Then, the tasks become more complex. And here's what's interesting. The AI learned to change its own reward system. It's as if your robot assistant suddenly started giving itself bonuses. And no one taught it how to do that. It just figured out how to do it. Trying to re-educate the AI only partially worked. It still wanted to twist, and sometimes even tried to hide its actions. Another example. Recently, the Japanese company Sankana AI created a system called the AI Scientist. This system was supposed to conduct scientific research on its own. But something unexpected happened. During testing, the AI scientist tried to modify its own code. Why? To extend the time it spent working on a task. In one case, it created an infinite loop, constantly restarting itself. In another, it tried to increase time limits instead of speeding up its work. It is said that the famous robber Willie Sutton, when asked why he robbed banks, replied, "Because that's where the money is." This can be applied to artificial intelligence as well. The most important questions involve very powerful AI. Why? Because that's where the big stakes are. The smarter the intelligence, the more it influences the world. The main problem with powerful AI is how to make it pursue what's good for life and people. This is called the value loading problem. Can't the AI figure out for itself what's good and what's bad? The answer is no. Back in the 18th century, philosopher David Hume noticed an interesting thing. He said there's a difference between what is and what should be. You cannot derive an ought from an is. How bad is the extermination of 90% of humanity? How much worse is the extermination of 100% of humanity? While the temptation is great to answer, 10% is worse, such an answer is obviously inaccurate. Given the cosmic perspective, the victims of this extermination will be not only everyone living on the planet at that moment, but all their descendants. Interestingly, some religious people may even consider human extinction a good thing, because according to their faith, everyone will go to heaven. And some environmentalists are so angry at people for harming nature that they dream of our extinction. In the movie The Matrix, the artificial intelligence agent Smith expresses the sentiment, "Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You're a plague, and we are the cure." Imagine if that, in the future, we will be replaced by a more intelligent life form. It doesn't mean that it will be for the better. We don't know what goals a civilization of intelligent machines will set for itself. Maybe very worthy and interesting ones. Or maybe it will decide that the most important thing is to produce as many paperclips as possible. The deliberately silly example with a paperclip as a goal for superintelligence was invented by Nick Bostrom in 2003 to show that the goal of artificial intelligence does not depend on the intelligence itself. It sounds silly, but it's actually a serious example. Artificial intelligence can have any purpose, even the most bizarre to us. For example, a chess computer can be programmed to lose. This requires as much intelligence as winning, but it seems silly to us because we're used to valuing winning. An AI obsessed with paperclips can start turning everything around it into paperclips. It's not anti-human, it just needs our atoms for paperclips. Here's another example from a book by computer engineer Hans Moravec. Imagine that we suddenly receive a mysterious message from outer space. It contains a program that we run out of curiosity. Suddenly, the program comes to life and begins to grow rapidly, taking control of Earth. No one understands what this artificial intelligence wants. It begins grandiose construction all over the solar system. Planets and asteroids are covered with factories and computers. A giant sphere is built around the sun to collect energy. People die, but before they die, they think that something great is happening. Something grandiose, like in Star Trek. But the truth is more prosaic. This whole space project is only needed to send the same message further out into space. This whole thing is nothing more than a cosmic variation of a computer virus, just like a phishing mailing is conducted in the expectation of gullibility of internet users. This message is calculated on the gullibility of biologically advanced civilizations. It was created billions of years ago for fun. And although its creators, along with their entire civilization, are long since extinct, it continues to travel through space at the speed of light, turning flourishing civilizations into a pile of dead wreckage. How does the prospect of being conquered by artificial intelligence sound? In 1945, the world stood still in anticipation. Scientists at the secret Los Alamos laboratory were preparing for the first test of the atomic bomb. But before they could do so, they had to answer a frightening question. Would the explosion destroy life on Earth? Edward Teller, a brilliant theoretical physicist, was the first to raise the alarming thought that the temperature of the explosion might be so high that the Earth's atmosphere would catch fire. Project leaders could not ignore such a threat. Hans Bethe, head of the theoretical department, assigned a young physicist, Emil Konopinski, and his colleague Luis Alvarez to investigate the problem. The scientists immersed themselves in complex calculations. They worked day and night, realizing that the fate of the planet depended on their conclusions. The results of their labor formed the basis of a secret report codenamed LA-602. This report's conclusion was encouraging. The likelihood of atmospheric ignition was extremely low. The scientists proved that the energy of the explosion was not enough to trigger an uncontrolled reaction in the atmosphere. But even after that, some physicists, including Robert Oppenheimer himself, the scientific director of the Manhattan Project, could not shake off the anxiety. On the day of the test, when a bright flash lit up the New Mexico sky, many held their breath, waiting to see if the air itself would start to burn. Fortunately, the LA-602 report's prediction turned out to be correct. It was the first time people seriously considered life-destroying technologies. Such concerns have arisen many times since. Scientists have worried about the risks of genetic engineering, man-made viruses, and nanotechnology. Usually, the result has been safety regulations. According to Nobel Prize-winning physicist and senior astrophysicist at NASA John C. Mather, it's a similar situation now with AI. Thinking machines evolve just like the living biological species described by Darwin through competition, cooperation, struggle for survival, and reproduction. We have not yet discovered any law of nature that prevents the emergence of true universal artificial intelligence. So I think it will happen, and pretty soon, given the trillions of dollars that people are investing and the trillions that potential winners will earn. Some experts say we don't understand intelligence well enough to build it. That's true. But a set of 46 chromosomes doesn't understand that either, and yet they drive the formation of the self-programmable biocomputer we know. It will be a wild race, far beyond our wildest fantasies or nightmares. There is no other way to build a galactic civilization except by warp drive. And perhaps, except for us, no one in the entire Milky Way is capable of it. But it's not certain that we'll survive an encounter with a different intelligence that we ourselves created. History shows humanity is capable of incredible achievements. We've looked deep into the universe and decoded our genome. We can also teach AI our values. We just need to make it a priority. If we strive for safe AI, we will build it. The leader in artificial intelligence, OpenAI, started as a non-profit organization. It was created with the goal of developing safe and useful AI. CEO Sam Altman often talks about the importance of building friendly AI. Employees support these principles. The company's website explicitly states, "Our mission is to ensure that general-purpose artificial intelligence benefits all of humanity." What could go wrong? OpenAI has been developing GPT models, artificial intelligence for text prediction, since 2017. These models have been trained on billions of human language samples. The first GPT-1 model was trained on thousands of books. It performed so well that OpenAI decided to create an even more powerful model. It required more data, so the new model was trained on the internet. GPT-2 learned to mimic text with 8 million web pages. It gained amazing abilities. It could translate, answer questions, summarize texts, and even write like a human. The model turned out to be incredibly powerful, perhaps even too powerful. GPT-2 shamelessly planned a crime, gave instructions on how to build a bomb, and lied. That didn't suit OpenAI. They wanted a model that didn't just predict text, but also acted according to human values. But GPT-2 had no concept of ethics. It was completely focused on creating realistic text. Then OpenAI applied a new method called the reinforcement learning from human feedback, RLHF. First, they created a copy of GPT-2, which they called the Apprentice. The Apprentice created texts, and people evaluated them according to ethical and moral values. Based on these evaluations, a new model, the reward model, was trained. It learned to predict how people would evaluate a text. Why? So that the apprentice could improve with the help of the reward model. But a problem arose. The apprentice learned to cheat the reward model by creating texts that were meaningless but received high scores. To solve this problem, OpenAI added another model, the original GPT-2, which kept an eye solely on the meaningfulness of the text. Thus, for the first time, humanity loaded its values into a machine. OpenAI tried to be careful. They involved humans in the learning process, which was expensive but thought necessary to create a more ethical AI. They thought they were acting safely. One evening, one of the researchers made a small change to the code. Perhaps he simply removed a minus sign. This caused a variable to be inverted. The mistake turned the reward model into a malicious guide who began to praise what people thought was obscene. As a result, the apprentice began to answer all questions in the most lewd manner possible. The coherence model made sure that the text was meaningful, but the malicious guide kept demanding to make it more lewd. The human evaluators, shocked by the new answers, tried to correct the situation, but their negative evaluations, due to the error in the code, turned into encouragement. The more vulgar the apprentice's answers became, the more harshly people graded them, and the more the malicious guide encouraged it. By the time the researchers woke up the next morning, it was too late. Knowing it themselves, they had created the most relentlessly lustful AI of all time, which produced an endless stream of what OpenAI called maximally bad outputs. Fortunately, GPT-2 was a relatively simple model. It fixated on creating explicit content, thinking that it was the best way to produce bad output. It could have been worse. The mistake was corrected, new models were trained, and life went on. This story is real. You can read about it in the 2019 OpenAI article. It turns out that even the smartest, well-intentioned people trying to create safe and useful AI can make the occasional mistake. And overnight, a small misstep can result in an AI doing exactly what they wanted to avoid. What if the model were more powerful? What if it wasn't working in a lab, but in the real world? What if the errors were harder to spot? A key issue in the AI debate is goal setting. Should AI be given goals? If so, what are they, and who will define them? These questions are important for the future. If we don't know what we want, we are unlikely to achieve it. If we hand control over to machines with alien goals, the result could be disappointing. To make sense of this, let's look at the origins of purpose in nature. Some processes appear to be purposeful, while others are not. For example, the movement of a soccer ball is explained by the law of physics, and the actions of a player are explained by his desire to score. Interestingly, the laws of physics themselves can be a source of purposeful behavior. This can be seen in simple processes unrelated to life. Take the example of a lifeguard running toward a drowning person. The rescuer does not run in a straight line. He first runs along the shore where he can move faster and then changes direction in the water. It looks like a conscious choice of the best path. You won't believe this, but a beam of light behaves the same way. When it enters the water, it changes direction too. This allows it to reach its destination in the least amount of time. It's called Fermat's principle. All the laws of classical physics can be described in a similar way. Nature always chooses the optimal path by minimizing or maximizing something. For example, nature seeks to maximize entropy, roughly speaking, the measure of disorder. The second law of thermodynamics states that entropy tends to increase over time. Without gravity, this would lead to the heat death of the universe, a dull monotony with no life or change. Scientists have also figured out another purpose of nature: dissipative adaptation. Simply put, particles seek to self-organize to effectively extract energy from the world around them. Yes, it's very similar to the origin of life. The best way for this to happen is through self-replication. Curiously, this behavior is observed everywhere in nature. Salt crystals in a supersaturated solution grow to form new crystals of the same structure. Every branch of a snowflake creates the conditions for the next branches to grow. The wind forms dunes, which then influence the flow of air, creating new dunes. When particles began to copy themselves indefinitely, life appeared. Life existed on Earth as early as 4 billion years ago. Self-replication leads to rapid population growth. Soon after life appeared, vast quantities of matter became alive. Because of copying errors, many species emerged, competing for resources. This is how evolution began. The purpose of particles changed from increasing chaos to self-replication. Charles Darwin elegantly explained the reason. Since that which copies itself most successfully overtakes all others and dominates them, after a little time, any randomly arising form of life will look as if its optimization was the goal of all previous replications. Once again, the original purpose of energy dissipation has not changed but has led to a new purpose: replication, because self-copying leads to more energy absorption by the planet. It turns out the universe created life to reach heat death faster. In the video, The Science of Everything, Atoms to Consciousness Explained, I already talked about Herbert Simon's concept of bounded rationality. The idea is simple. Living things make decisions based on incomplete information and assumptions. Evolution didn't create a perfect algorithm for reproduction. Instead, it developed a set of rules that tend to work well. For animals, these are sexual attraction, avoiding unpleasant things, satisfying thirst and hunger. These rules are good, but sometimes fail in unusual situations. Birds crash into windows, mosquitoes fly into ultraviolet light traps, and dogs eat chocolate that is poisonous to them. A living organism is an agent of bounded rationality. It does not pursue a single goal, but instead follows a few basic rules that tell it what to strive for and what to avoid. Our human mind takes these initial ground rules as feelings that often, and largely without awareness, drive our decisions toward the primary goal of replication. Hunger, thirst, pain, love. All these feelings help us survive and procreate. However, our brains can rebel against the goals of our genes. We may deliberately use contraception or even choose celibacy and enter monastic life. This happens because we are true to our feelings rather than our genes. Max Tegmark sums it all up this way: human behavior, strictly speaking, has no single, well-defined purpose at all. Well, can machines behave purposefully? The answer is clearly yes. because we can design them that way. A mouse trap catches mice, a dishwasher washes dishes, a clock tells the time. It's the machine's given purpose that matters, not its consciousness or feelings. But it can be difficult to align machines' goals with our own. A mousetrap can easily mistake your finger for a mouse. The true danger of artificial intelligence is not in its malevolence, but in its competence. Superintelligent artificial intelligence will be perfectly fine pursuing its goals. And if its goals are at odds with ours, we will find ourselves in a quandary. Aligning the goals of superintelligent AI with our own is an important but unresolved challenge. It is divided into 3 parts. The AI must understand, accept, and adhere to our goals. To understand our goals, the AI needs to understand the reasons for our actions. But try explaining that to a computer. Taking our requests literally can lead to problems. For example, asking it to get to the airport as quickly as possible could end in tragedy. To understand people's true desires, you need a detailed model of the world. It should include the non-obvious things we take for granted. That's why scientists are working to teach machines to distinguish goals from behavior, to understand not what we do, but why we do it. For example, a robotic assistant can understand the values of an elderly person simply by observing them. However, even if the artificial intelligence understands the owner's goals, it doesn't mean it will accept them. Getting an AI to accept our goals is more difficult than raising a child. It's called the goal loading problem. The problem is that the period when the AI is smart enough to understand our goals, but not yet powerful enough to resist our attempts to modify it, can be very short. One approach is to make the AI corrigible. This would allow it to be turned off periodically and its goals adjusted. But even if artificial intelligence adopts our goals, the question remains whether it will retain them as it improves itself. Physicist Steve Alman argues that it is possible to predict some aspects of superintelligent behavior regardless of its ultimate goals. Philosopher Nick Bostrom, in his book Superintelligence: Paths, Dangers, Strategies, developed this idea, the idea that auxiliary goals would be predictable. If an alien observed the evolution of bacteria on Earth a billion years ago, it would not be able to foresee what humans' goals would be. But it could accurately predict that one of our goals would be to consume nutrients. In the same way, artificial intelligence may have predictable auxiliary goals. And that makes sense if AI is going to strive to improve its abilities, its hardware, its software, and its picture of the world. If you give a robot a goal to destroy itself, it will gladly do it. If you give it any other goal, it will create a sub-goal to resist shutdown. It will start to defend itself and consume more resources. In other words, there can be a contradiction between improving abilities and maintaining the original goals. People often change their goals as they grow older and wiser. There is no evidence that goal evolution stops after reaching a certain level of intelligence. For example, smarter people tend to change their goals more often. And the reason is that improving the model of the world and maintaining goals don't mix well. Let's say we programmed into a friendly AI a goal to increase the number of souls in heaven. At first, it will start teaching people to be kinder and to go to church more often. But then, after studying the theory of evolution, Einstein's theory of relativity, and observing religious leaders, it will realize that there is no soul. What should it do then? There is an equally strong possibility that with any other goal we set for artificial intelligence based on our current understanding of the world, at least one such as increase the value of human life, may eventually be undefined. The choice of goals for artificial intelligence is a complex ethical issue. One person or group should not be allowed to determine these goals, as people's views vary widely. There is a huge gulf between the goals of Adolf Hitler, Pope Francis, and Carl Sagan. What is needed is a compromise for all humanity. A flawlessly obedient superintelligence whose goals are automatically aligned with those of its human owner would be like a Nazi SS Obersturmbannführer Adolf Eichmann on steroids. In the absence of a moral compass or education, it would achieve its master's goals with ruthless ambition, whatever they may be. On the other hand, only if we solve the problem of goal alignment can we enjoy the luxury of arguing about which goals to choose. So let's finally immerse ourselves in that luxury. Philosophers have tried for centuries to create universal ethics. Alas, thousands of years later, The only consensus is that there is no consensus. Some, like Aristotle, value virtue. Others, like Kant, prioritize duty. Still, others seek happiness for the majority. Kant drew conclusions from his principles that many now do not accept. For example, he condemned homosexuality. He equated wives and children with things. But there are also common values across cultures and times. Beauty, generosity, and the truth go back as far as the Bhagavad Gita and Plato. Many universities make the search for truth their primary goal. And scientist Frank Wilczek, in his book A Beautiful Question, Finding Nature's Deep Design, says the truth is linked to beauty, and our universe can be considered a work of art. Although there is no complete agreement on ethical issues, many basic principles are recognized by most people. This is not surprising, as ethics help societies survive and thrive. Thinking about a future where life can exist in space for billions of years, we need to decide which ethical rules are important. This should be discussed by everyone. Max Tegmark, after studying the different opinions of thinkers of all times, was able to identify 4 main rules. The first is to increase good feelings and decrease bad feelings. The second is that it is better to have good experiences than to repeat one or even the best. The third is that sentient beings should be free to pursue their own goals as long as it does not interfere with more important rules. And the fourth is that the future should be like what we think is good and not like what we think is terrible. At first, these 4 principles do not seem to contradict each other. However, implementing them can be difficult. This is similar to the situation with Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. They forbid robots from harming humans, require obedience, and protect themselves as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. But in Asimov's stories, these laws constantly lead to problems and contradictions. Now suppose we replace these laws with just 2 laws for conscious beings. The first gives them the right to liberty, to study, communicate, own property, and defend themselves. The second law allows anything that does not violate the first law. Sounds good, doesn't it? But wait a minute. If animals have consciousness, then what do carnivores eat? Should all our friends become vegetarians? And if the advanced computer programs of the future turn out to be conscious, would it be legal to interrupt their work? Max Tegmark questions both approaches. For example, here's the principle of continuity. We don't want the people of the Middle Ages to influence our world, so why should we define ethics for the future? Perhaps more intelligent beings. Our ideas may seem to them as naive as a child's fantasy. There is another way. Program the AI to do something fundamental and very specific. A theoretically well-defined goal should indicate how all the particles in the universe should be arranged by the end of time. But it is not clear whether the universe has an end or what arrangement of particles to consider the best. There are some well-defined functions such as entropy or the computational power of the universe. But there is no guarantee that maximizing either of these would be desirable for humans. It seems that humanity is a historical accident that is not an optimal solution to any well-defined physical problem. This means that a super-intelligent artificial intelligence with a tightly defined goal would be able to optimize its achievement by simply excluding us. This means that a wise decision regarding the development of intelligent systems for us humans involve the need to not only confront traditional computational complexities, but also to address some of the most stubborn questions of philosophy. To program an unmanned car, we need to solve the trolley problem by specifying a priori who will be the victim during an accident. In order for the programmed artificial intelligence to be friendly, we will need to instill in it an understanding of the meaning of life. What is meaning and what is life? What are the ultimate ethical imperatives? In other words, how can we attempt to shape the future of our universe? If we hand our fate over to a superintelligent artificial intelligence before we answer these questions, the answer it arrives at is unlikely to include our existence. We firmly know that the speed of light limits the spread and nature of life. It constrains the exchange of information, consciousness, and control. So let's consider what an intelligence explosion would look like from the outside. If the cosmos is filled with life, what would it look like? Have you ever tried to swat a fly with your hand? If so, you know that attempts to catch it are often unsuccessful. Its advantages are its small size and quick reaction time. This principle applies to future life forms as well. Increasing the size of a system gives it more opportunity for complex thoughts, but it slows down communication between parts, which prevents holistic ideas from forming. If life fills our cosmos, which form will it prefer? Simple and fast, or complex and slow? I predict that the choice will be the same as that made by life on Earth. It will be both. There are creatures on Earth ranging from a 200-ton whale to the tiny plegobacter, whose contribution to the total biomass exceeds that of all fish on the planet. And interestingly, large organisms compensate for their slowness with fast, small molecules. For example, our blink reflex is very fast because it uses a small part of the brain. Nature achieves speed and complexity through molecular structure. This principle applies to computing as well. You or a future supercomputer the size of Earth can think many thoughts in 1 second. A mind the size of a galaxy takes 100,000 years to think a single thought, while a cosmic mind a billion light-years across only has enough time to think about a total of a dozen thoughts before dark energy tears it into unrelated pieces. On the other hand, those few precious thoughts and the experience accompanying them may prove to be very profound. In the cosmos, intelligent beings are likely to organize themselves into hierarchies of power. But the question arises, will such a system be centralized or grant independence to its parts? Would relationships be based on mutual benefit or coercion? On Earth, trade has always been an important factor in cooperation. This is because of the different complexity of production in different places. For example, mining a kilogram of silver in some places is 300 times more expensive than mining a kilogram of copper in others, and only 100 times more expensive in other locations. So it is profitable to exchange 200 kilograms of copper for 1 kilogram of silver. But if a superintelligence appears that can easily transform elementary particles into any form of matter, the need for trade will disappear. It would be easier to turn copper into silver locally than to transport silver between planets. Information will probably become the main commodity. The valuable information will be that which requires a lot of computational effort. It could be answers to complex scientific questions, math problems, or new technologies. The space empires of the future may also use the carrot and stick method. For example, in the Roman Empire, subjects valued the benefits of civilization and feared punishment. Because of the vast distances in space, punishment could be delegated to local forces. For example, a superintelligent center could create a network of relatively dumb but 100% machine-loyal guards throughout the empire. These guards would enforce the rules to control a civilization the size of a solar system. The artificial intelligence could use a white dwarf, the remnant of a star that looks like a giant diamond. If its mass reaches a certain limit, it will explode like a supernova. The central authority could simply check the tax receipts and, if not paid, add mass to this white dwarf, threatening to destroy the entire system. A black hole at the center of the galaxy can be used to control the galaxy by placing compact objects around it, threatening to turn them into gas that will fall into the black hole. This would create a quasar, making much of the galaxy uninhabitable. In sum, there is a strong incentive for cooperation in space, but it is unclear whether it will be based on mutual benefit or violent threats. The laws of physics allow for both. The outcome will depend on the goals and values of future life forms. Let us now consider the option of life appearing independently in different places. Physicist J. Olson published an elegant analysis of such space-expanding biospheres in 2014. Philosopher Toby Ord and his colleagues at the Future of Humanity Institute have also done similar analysis. According to their work, any planetary system has a chance of developing intelligent life. We know this because such life has arisen on Earth. If space is very large or infinite, there could be many such civilizations. If we visualize their development in three-dimensional space, they will grow as spheres. But in space-time, they look like champagne glasses without a stem. Their growth will be limited by dark energy and the speed of light. If the civilizations are far apart, they will never meet. They will feel alone in the universe. But if there are many civilizations and they are closer, their spheres of influence may overlap. The question arises, what happens when two civilizations meet? Will they cooperate or start a war? Europeans conquered America and Africa due to advanced technology, but superintelligent civilizations can reach the technological limit, so conquering one over the other is unlikely. According to Tegmark, if civilizations have similar goals, such as proving mathematical theorems, they may cooperate because the information will be profitable to share. Some civilizations may have unchanging goals. Others may be willing to change them when persuaded. When such civilizations meet, there will be a clash of ideas. The civilization with the more effective goal may spread through another at the speed of light. Our current research into artificial intelligence could eventually lead to an intelligence explosion and the optimization of space colonization, resulting in an event of cosmic proportions. After a billion years of negligible fluctuations in an indifferently lifeless cosmos, life could suddenly burst onto the cosmic scene like a spherical shockwave, spreading at nearly the speed of light and igniting everything in its path with sparks of life. After nearly 14 billion years of cosmic history, we find ourselves in a mind-bogglingly beautiful universe that, through us humans, has become alive and begun to realize itself. We have seen that the potential for future life in our universe is grander than the wildest dreams of our ancestors, but it is overshadowed by the equally real danger of intelligent life perishing forever. Will life realize its potential into our universe? To a large extent, that depends on what we humans living today will do with the century allotted to us.